So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to you, Cherie. I'm so excited to be privileged to be having this conversation with you.
I'm excited to be here.
Thank
Look
you.
at this place, it's buzzing.
It's amazing. Actually, Cherie and I were chatting before about the first time that we met, and it was some years ago at UNESCO, where she came to talk about what was happening in her foundation. And so today we're going to hear a little more from Cherie about what's new since then. You've been around, I think, with the foundation since 2008. You have touched the lives of tens of thousands of women and girls, 300,000, ladies and gentlemen. Let's give her a round of applause for 300,000. So Cherie, maybe starting with the first question as we get into our conversation, if you can share with us, we're all here to talk about AI for good, your thoughts on how artificial intelligence, the technologies linked to AI and education, how can they help to be able to level that playing field to enable sustainable and inclusive growth, especially for women and girls?
Well, I have to say I'm a bit of a techie enthusiast. So when I set up the foundation in 2008, I was thinking of, I wasn't thinking of AI, but I was definitely thinking about how technology can enable you to take things to scale, to spread information more widely. And since then, in the years, nearly 20 years since then, I have seen for myself how that really makes a difference. So I want to say, first of all, I'm very positive about what AI can contribute, because it's just taking technology to that next level. So it really can enable women's economic empowerment and entrepreneurship. And it can really make a difference in low and middle income countries, which is fantastic. But there's always a but. It can also undermine the opportunities for women entrepreneurs by continuing to work with gender-based stereotypes, which can be amalgamated within AI itself. So it's very important at every stage that we have a mixed perspective, particularly a female perspective, but not just a female perspective, so that AI really can achieve the good. I mean, we have done surveys of our women that we work with, and they already want to use AI. Nearly 40% of them are using AI, and they can do all sorts of things. First of all, help with customer access, help with marketing. So many of the women we talk to can use AI to provide a good English description on their website that makes sense about what they're doing, which may be better than they could do themselves. That's an amazing thing. Of course, it also has a great role in streamlining business processes, which means that smaller players can compete with larger players, which would never have happened before AI made that accessible. But the reality is, in low and middle income countries, women often are less well educated than men. They have less access to skills. They absolutely have less access to finance. Every time I ask a woman entrepreneur what one of their biggest problems is being taken seriously as an entrepreneur and getting access to finance. And also, of course, the whole gender stereotype, which basically says, girls and women, they're just not very good at tech, which of course is not true, but nevertheless can often put off a lot of women even trying. So 20% of the women we surveyed, last year we surveyed 3,000 women, thanks to the World Bank and Intuit, women entrepreneurs that we were working with, and asked them about their use of AI. And 40% were using it, but 20% said, oh, it's not for us. I don't know what to do about that. 70%, however, of women entrepreneurs said, we'd really like to know more. So there's a real opportunity there. That's not just an opportunity for development, an opportunity for good. It's actually an opportunity for the tech companies as a market. There's a market there we assess as $30 billion worth of market that's just there, ripe for the taking, if we can reach out to women and make them feel comfortable and understand that AI is for them.
Right, it's that if that we have to focus on. We had a previous session this afternoon with Mark Benioff,
Yeah.
and he was sharing some of his thoughts about how artificial intelligence was going to change things and have an impact, and he actually focused on MSMEs, startups, and how it would really be a game changer for small and medium enterprises, and that's something that you're very focused on.
And what is very interesting is actually it can really make a difference, talking about that finance piece, because we are seeing that actually this is a whole way of opening up micro loans to women and men who are unbanked, who have no credit history. So traditional banking, traditional means of providing finance aren't interested in them, but using AI, we can actually see, they can use alternative data to work out whether or not this is a good risk. And by the way, all the research shows that generally speaking, if you lend a development dollar to a woman, you'll get 90% of them will pay it back. And if you do the same to a man, it's more like 30 to 40%. So, AI should be seeing far more women coming into them.
I'm seeing some smiles in the crowd. We actually have some amazing women here, if you get a chance to walk the halls, doing incredible things when it comes to leveraging AI for good. I wanted perhaps to pick up on your point on perceptions and bias. So something that we do at the ITU, we have this Girls in ICT Day every April. So we've been trying to bring attention to the importance of getting women and girls into the tech field, trying to change sort of the balance when it comes to the workforce. We see globally maybe 20 to 30% of the tech workforce.
That's not good enough, is it?
It's not good enough.
No.
So what things in terms of strategies can we be doing to try to change that balance, to get more women to be interested in these fields and try to correct those perceptions and biases?
Well, I think what we need to do, first of all, is to actually speak, when we're talking about getting women and girls involved, stop talking to them in men. Let's start talking to women in the language that women understand. Let's actually start using examples and giving examples of how it works for women. We found this more generally in our business training because, we do business training. So you think, well, business training is gender neutral. Yeah, business training in one way is gender neutral. But remember, business was designed by men for men. And there are lots of implicit biases in that which don't actually speak to women, which actually put women off. And I think there's a lesson there for technology as well. I mean, you work with girls, so you know that so many of the examples in the textbooks, they are about things that maybe boys are more interested in than girls, or they're about, the examples assume that it's about a man doing something. We need to change the language. I know there's been a lot of work on that, but we still need to do more. So talking the language, making sure that we are an open, welcoming door to women is really, really important, and that we're doing things that are relevant. I think the other thing for women and girls, it's not just women, by the way, it is girls too, because we find even young girls, when you do you survey between the free time that girls have and the free time boys have, the boys always have more free time because the girls, in general, I'm afraid, are expected to do more, help with the childcare, help with the housework. So you need to do things which can attract time-poor women and bear that in mind. It needs to be accessible, it needs to be in bite-sized pieces, and that's what we've developed. We have a training app called Her Venture app, and it's like Duolingo for business skills. And we deliberately have targeted that, firstly with a woman-centered approach, so the examples are all about women entrepreneurs, but also in bite-sized pieces, 10 to 15 minutes, which actually you can do when you're sitting there waiting to pick up your child from school, or you can do because you've got one client in your hairdressing business and another one's not coming for the next minute. You need to think about how time poor women are.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about your, I think the target is 1 million,
Yes.
1 million women by 2030. Tell us a little bit about that exciting initiative.
Well, as you say, we've reached 300,000 women, which in one way is great, and yet in another way is just a drop in the ocean. And when we look at the Sustainable Development Goals, and we look at which are on target and which are not on target, guess what? Global Goal 5, equality for women and girls, nowhere near the target. Global Goal 8, which is about, good employment prospects, also nowhere near the target. So what are we going to do to try and turn that around? So we have set ourselves a goal of reaching 1 million women entrepreneurs in low and middle income countries by 2030. Not just by ourselves, but by working with other organizations, whether they're other NGOs, whether it's governments, or whether it's organizations like ITU, which is particularly, if I may say so, since you've taken over, has really focused on this. So how can we together ensure that we reach the maximum number of women possible? And frankly, 1 million, if we really did this properly, 1 million is easily achievable. Yeah. When I think of where we work in Nigeria, in South Africa, there are amazing women entrepreneurs there, and they have hundreds of millions of people. It would be very easy indeed to reach 1 million women. And tomorrow I'm signing an MOU with the Nigerian Gender Ministry. Their goal is to reach 10 million.
Excellent.
So,
Excellent.
if we can be a part of that, we are achieving something, because I really believe this is something we can do together. This isn't about what my organization can do, it's what my organization can do working with your organization.
Terrific, terrific. Well, let's step back a second and share your thoughts about what do you think is preventing women? So we have this digital divide. We spoke before this morning about the fact that there are 2.6 billion people that have never, ever connected to the internet. So we have this digital divide. Within that divide, we would call it a stubborn gap. We have this digital gender gap. And it just doesn't go away. And actually, in least developed countries, the gap is getting bigger. So do you have thoughts about, what are the barriers that are keeping women from being connected, that are keeping women from using digital technologies when it comes to their businesses? Do you have further thoughts on that?
Well, I have a number of thoughts on that, actually. But, one of the things, of course, is affordability. And that, of course, is not just keeping women out, it's keeping men out too. But affordability is a big issue, because the more expensive it is, then the more likely it is, for example, in a family, and your research has shown this, isn't it? If a family can only afford one phone, guess who gets the most use of it? The male in the family, and then the female has to sort of piggyback on that. But when we did this survey with World Bank and Intuit, as I said, this year, 3,000 women. When we asked them about affordability, the other thing they said was that, so many of the products are priced in dollars. Now, I'm sure many of you here know that in Africa, dollars is a very precious resource, and it's not available to people on low income. So, can't the industry start thinking about whether you can do pricing in local currency, which actually makes it easier for poor people to at least get a chance of using this? And given the size of the market, there are economies of scale from that. And then it's about languages. We're lucky. I'm lucky. In many places in the world, when there are a lot of tribal languages, English is the default language. But nevertheless, for the literate and semi-literate and illiterate, Local languages are important. What can we do now, especially with AI, to develop programs and tools in local languages?
Yeah.
And sometimes I think in the tech industry, we think languages and we think English, we think French, you know, but then somebody said to me, you know, we're going to go in more obscure languages like Bengali. And I said, you do realize how many millions of people in the world speak Bengali? I mean, it is not a small market. It's just a question of the perspective. So local languages, I think, are really important. And I do think we have to look at this whole question of gender stereotyping and gender-based inequalities and actively do something to combat that. It was very interesting in our research about one of the things that women entrepreneurs said about why they were deterred or why they stopped perhaps using digital technology in general was about safety. Because the truth is, the internet is not a safe place for many, many women, and that's whether you're in a low and middle income country or in a high income country. And if you're a businesswoman and you're putting yourself out, it's partly about promoting yourself. And sadly, some men seem to think that if you are wanting to sell something to them, that they might be entitled to something extra. And that you're therefore available for those approaches. So when we asked women had they had any harassment on their business sites, 70% of them had seen some kind of gender-based harassment on their website. 10% of them had had so much harassment that they'd actually stopped using their websites. So this is this is not just a minor problem, and I think 25% of them had received sex explicit messages or images. And now I'm not talking about dating websites. I'm certainly not talking about pornography websites. I'm talking about a business that's trying to sell you a service or a good. And yet still some people think that's an opportunity. You know, we need to do more. And sadly, there's been a bit of a backlash about doing more. Our research showed that when we asked the women what sort of technology were they using, guess what? Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram, they were the most popular. Yeah. Now, our research was showing that gender-based violence, gender-based harassment was coming through when we did the research last year. Since then, Meta has said they're not going to do so much moderation anymore. It's an unintended consequence, I'm sure it's unintended consequence of that. They're going to put more women off from using their programs, and that they're also exposing more women to more risk of harassment. So we really need to think about this, because it's a really big issue for women across the world. Yeah. And it's a huge market that if you're not addressing, you're not developing.
Yeah, well, while we have AI for Good, this week we also have the World Summit on the Information Society Plus 20 Forum that's running in parallel. And I think the issues linked to online safety, harassment, bullying, that's very much a focus of shaping a digital future that is safe and trusted for all, men, women, boys, girls. So I think those are very, very important points. And I guess, Cherie, the last question, because I know time is short, just to get some quick thoughts, how can we, the AI generation, we've been thinking about AI for Good, the AI generation, how can we collectively ensure that technology and tech innovation actually benefits everyone, everywhere?
Well, I think, first of all, just being aware that there is an issue and asking ourselves about the assumptions that we're making. I would love to see AI being a force for positive masculinity. I think too often what we're seeing is AI being regarded as something which is, to my mind anyway, negative masculinity, the bullying, the harassment, the Andrew Tates of this world. And yet I know so many men who actually aren't like that at all. And, you know, I believe those men are also working in this sector, and their voices need to be heard. They need to come involved and challenge this idea that there is only, you know, this masculine, you know, what is really being a good man? Isn't being a good man being a good father, being a good partner? Or is it just someone who's kind of strutting off and saying, just do as I say? I think you know the answer to that, or at least what I think the answer to that is.
Now, well, I think we're out of time, but ladies and gentlemen, let's give a round of applause for Cherie Blair.